Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L and now let's talk Shokugeki no Soma or Food Wars, chapter 229, the third bout. So with this chapter, what we ultimately got is we got the matchups for what's going to be going down, and we got a tiny bit of a flashback getting started, ultimately centering around Megumi, because as we see in the chapter, Megumi's the one who is dealing with a pretty big obstacle in her path. But yeah, let's just talk about the chapter. Overall, it's a pretty standard chapter of Shokugeki no Soma. Lots of character interactions at the beginning, everyone having their little things at the beginning, having their little fun times, or having the little, like, I guess not strategy session, but more kind of build themselves up type session. So for fans of seeing the characters interact together like that, you know, it's a pretty nice little chapter for the beginning part. Ultimately though, the chapter, when you look at it, as we go past that initial bit of the characters hanging out and playing games or just psyching themselves up, we go into that pretty much the Momo characterization and Megumi's general self-confidence. Those become the big points of the chapter. We start off with Momo, we get her characterization, we get her like explaining that she likes cute things, and I'm not gonna lie, the way she's presenting herself, it's mildly annoying. I don't like this little girl. Like she's kind of like, she's lighting a fire in me just slightly, and it's just rubbing me the wrong way. I'm getting pretty burned just looking at her. There was one pose that she made in particular with her little stuffed toy, which was like, it's cute because it's just a tiny little girl, but at the same time it's like, I don't like her. And then when we get Ishiki's general interpretation of her, or just like, well, no, it's not an interpretation, I'm sure this guy knows exactly what's going on in her head. He explains that whenever she denotes something cute, she doesn't see them as a serious threat. So that only goes along with her general demeanor. That makes sense. I like that he did point out that, yeah, she's a pretty nasty person when it comes to looking down on people. Another thing that I really liked with Momo in particular was when she was talking to Megumi, her face when she said good luck or something along those lines. I like that face. That was a pretty hostile face for such a adorable child. And again, she's not a child, she's just short, but very interesting thing with her. So we spent a good amount of the chapter focusing on her at the very beginning, and through her we also found out the condition of the other people. For the record, her little exposition spot in the chapter was about 6 pages, so it did eat up quite a bit of the chapter. But anyway, like I said, we found out about the condition of the other 3 who were competing the day before. We found out that Saito did some training to get his senses back up to a point where he could counter the fatigue, and then we found out that Rindo and good old Tsukasa are just staying home. They're gonna just try to recuperate as fast as they can, and that'll be pretty interesting. We'll talk about that towards the end once we finish talking about the chapter structure in general. Once we get past that, we're at the venue and we do find out the matchups. Soma versus Saito, Takumi versus Aizen, and then Megumi versus Momo. So in that general setup of those 3, the one I expected to happen was going to be Megumi and Momo. I knew that. I was pretty sure that was going to happen. So seeing that we got that, you know, I'm not surprised. The ones that did surprise me to a small degree were Soma and Takumi. I didn't expect that Takumi would be going up against, you know, Aizen, but it makes sense. Like if you consider it from the perspective of the authors don't want Soma to go up against people he's already beaten, because that will affect people's excitement to a degree. You want him to compete against higher level or different chefs. It makes sense. So what's ultimately going on here, it's that this creates an interesting kind of discussion point for the rivalry between Soma and Takumi. If Takumi is able to beat Aizen, it is at least saying that he is to some degree a worthy rival for Soma, and Soma's having his match kind of, it's being Soma's level for the match with Saito, or the match itself, the level it's going to be at is being dropped from the level that it was with Subaru, because Saito's also dealing with the possible fatigue. So Overall, I think in terms of the importance of both matches, it's going to be roughly the same. Or in terms of the difficulty of both matches for Takumi and Soma, it's going to be roughly the same. It's just, I do think, for me personally, I was thinking that would be Soma and Aizen just because I thought they were going to have their rematch. I thought Soma was going to deal with an Aizen who was going full throttle from the very beginning, but we're giving that honor to Takumi. So he is going to get a distinction here. He's going to beat Aizen when Aizen is going to be performing at a higher level than he was when he first went up against Soma. Soma's distinction is he's going up against the guy who's the third seat right now. So overall, a pretty interesting little like switcheroo with that in terms of my initial expectations. Then when we had Momo and Megumi, I'm not gonna lie, I sort of expected it just because Megumi's the cute one on the rebel side and Momo's the cute one on the rebel side. So that was my main rationale for why that would happen, and that's what we're ultimately getting here, right? Like, well, Megumi's the one that said that she would challenge Momo, but in terms of the appropriateness, yeah, like that, it's an appropriate matchup. It's a really appropriate matchup in just terms of who the characters are and just what they're about. It makes sense that this is how it's gonna go. Again, Aizen and Takumi is the most interesting one because I don't really see, they don't have any dramatic connection, right? Like him and Soma are the ones that have the dramatic connection. Aizen and Takumi don't have one really established. But the shot of the two just facing off against each other, I really like that shot. That's probably like my favorite shot of the chapter, just because it's so intense. It looks pretty cool. Takumi looks really cool. I'm really excited for the character. I want him to pull it off. I want him to do really well. I want all three to do well, but like this is Takumi's time to shine. I want to see him like actually, because at this point he's like a barking dog, right? Like he always barks at Soma that he's his rival and he wants to stay at his level and all that. But then you have people like Akira and Ryo who just go and do it. So I kind of want to see Takumi get to that level now. It's okay that he starts off weak. I just want to see if he's capable of growing, because that growth is going to be what's going to put him in Soma's league eventually. So this is going to be a really big deal for Takumi. I want to see it. I want to see him win. I'm pretty excited overall. Now let's see. Anything else I really want to say about the matchups? No, that pretty much covers my general thoughts about it. Like Megumi is the one who I think has the biggest challenge here. Because personally, I think Takumi tends to be a little bit better off than Megumi, because Megumi just has her self-confidence issues. She has like a big mental block or a mental obstacle to deal with. And the chapter does to some degree agree with that idea that Megumi does have a weakness in terms of her outlook, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But Takumi just seems, because he's chasing after Soma, his mindset is more set towards victory than Megumi's is. And again, like the person that she's challenging is just flat out dangerous compared to the people that Soma and Takumi are challenging, because Soma has the handicap of Saito is tired. Takumi has the handicap of this guy is probably the weakest of the Elite 10 right now. But we'll have to see. Now, in regards to the Megumi, at the end of the chapter, we get to see Shinomiya. I did not expect that. That is excellent. Once I saw that Megumi was off by herself in the last couple of pages, where I saw that Gin was telling her to just go wait by herself, I knew it. I knew Shinomiya was coming in. It was going to happen. Because Shokugeki no Soma does a really fun little thing whenever Shinomiya is about to pop up against in the story, or whenever he's going to be referenced. When he's going to be referenced, he will appear in the cover page. It's happened a few times. And when I saw him at this cover page, I was like, okay, there's going to be a mention of Shinomiya to some degree. I did not think, though, that the guy would be popping up right there. And he pops up and he looks like a badass. This guy, man. I really like that the authors get so much mileage out of Shinomiya. Like he's a pretty fun character when he pops in. And he has set himself up to have a pretty nice dynamic with Soma in general. But seeing that he came back to revisit the girl that he almost expelled, yeah, I'm pretty happy about that. I do think that Megumi, her whole thing is going to be dealing with the nervousness that pops up when she's cooking. We haven't really gotten a lot of focus on it in the past rounds that Megumi's been involved in, but like they say in the chapter, he's the one that brings the trauma. So I want to see Megumi like learn from this guy and also learn to be better than what she is right now. Again, like him being there, that's specifically because Megumi has such a big problem with him in her head. Or, you know, not big problem, she's scared of the guy. Overall, that was a big surprise. I'm really excited to see the character again. And at this point, it's like, we can assume that the majority of the Totsuki alumni are against Azami. When you see him popping in there too, like he represents a good amount of the alumni that we've seen before. So with him there, you know, it feels good. It's a nice thing. I'm really happy we got to see the character there again. Biggest surprise of the chapter, but best panel of the chapter is still Takumi and the Aizen just slight face off. Okay, so there were other points that I wanted to talk about, I wanted to touch on, and that was, we touched on Megumi. Oh yes, we have to touch upon what's going to happen and try and predict what the setup's going to be for the upcoming matches. Now, Rindo and Tsukasa have decided that they're going to stay home. On the first day we had 2 bouts. We should expect that unless Azami is trying to like rig things a little bit, there's gonna be a 4th bout on this day. There just has to be, right? Because that's the pattern that was established with the first day. Now, if we take that assumption to be true, that there is gonna be a 4th bout, it means that if we wipe out 2 of the people in this round from the central side, it means both Tsukasa and Rindo have to come out. This is the best case scenario for us. So our best case scenarios, the best one is naturally all 3 of our guys get through. The second best case is 2 of our guys get through, because that puts the central side in a bad situation. The bad cases, well, we should really want to stop at just losing 1 of our guys in this round. Automatically, our worst case scenario is whether or not Tsukasa gets the extra day to rest. Because if we go into a situation where only 1 of our guys gets through, then that means Rindo is going to be the one that comes in next. And so dealing with Rindo is just going to be whatever, but it gives Tsukasa that extra day. Actually, depending on whether or not Rindo's the better chef over Tsukasa, the point is we can't have the 2 of them getting through to their full day of rest. Because that will just completely invalidate the strategy that Irina has set up. It will invalidate the sacrifice of the 3 people who came before them. So we do not want that situation. But we also have to keep in mind that we haven't seen Irina cook yet. And Ishiki hasn't really gotten a proper demonstration. Although Megishima, to some degree, you could argue he didn't get a proper demonstration. But he also made Rindo have to stay out for a whole day. So, you know, it's a bit of an argument there. But when it comes to Ishiki, if there's a character who's going to be set up to take down either the first seat or the second seat, I do legitimately think it's going to be Ishiki. So, you know, we have to keep in mind, because we also have to consider that Irina hasn't been put out yet. We know that because this is a story, the narrative is probably going to be focused in a way such that Irina is going to eventually have to compete. We just don't know when it's going to happen. Again, if we go with the best case scenario, the absolute best case scenario, and that is everyone on our side gets through this next round, then that would mean that people would get wiped out in the 4th round, and then Irina and Ishiki would come in to clean up. If we want to also include the assumption that the narrative needs Irina to have 1 victory here. And, you know, it'll be an interesting thing. It'll be really interesting to see how the authors want this to go out. That said, there's really, what's the most amount of rounds that we're going to be able to have in the Regiment de Cuisine? Most likely a maximum of 6. I wouldn't expect us to have more than 6. In the best case scenario, we only have 4 rounds total. But I think most likely we're going to be heading into a 5th round. So it'll be interesting to see who exactly gets into the 5th round. Right now, the 3rd round, we can assume that people, like someone from our side is going to win. That's like an easy assumption to make. If the authors decide to go that direction and say like, no one from the rebel side is going to win this round, that'll be interesting, but it's highly unlikely. Anyway, interesting stuff in this chapter. Again, it's the speculation on what's going to happen with the next rounds is, I think, one of the more interesting points here. but compared to the last round, like this one, I'm not that tense about it. It's a pretty simple assumption to make that one of our guys is going to get through. But yeah, guys, that's my thoughts. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen with these rounds? What do you think there's going to be a lot of teamwork coming in from our Rebel team? They're the ones that got practice working together, so I expect to see something like that to some degree. Anyway, guys, I'm going to end it there. Thanks for watching, and yeah, till next time, I hope you have a great day.